Why can you not reinvent who you want to be every decade of your working life? May of 2025, I put in a 2 weeks notice. This whole summer, I neither felt like a true athlete nor I felt like a businesswoman, but every day I was waking up and choosing to do things that were proving otherwise. 20 Bites was born from this summer, hence what I hope is a consulting firm that just helps people.
Welcome to Curiously Stuck, the show where we unpack the stuck moments, curious leaps, and behind the scene pivots of becoming a business leader. I'm your host, Chelsea Stuck, former sales manager, now turned brand strategist. And if you're leading sales, running a brand, or building a go-to-market strategy in food service, this one is for you. Today, we're serving up a collaboration between Craeve and 20 Bites, where culinary know-how meets creative marketing. I'm joined today by Rose Cowell of 20 Bites, a culinary pro who spent 15 years across restaurants, bakeries, and factory product launches. Rose is that rare translator. She can move an idea from the test kitchen to the sales deck to the customer's plate. Grab your notebooks, maybe a snack, and let's dig in to Rose's story. Rose, thank you so much for joining me today.
Very glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
For those out there, hopefully I'm not oversharing, but Rose is based out of Chicago. And if you know me well, I was 12 years in Chicago, and it is my heart city. And so I felt instantly connected whenever we first started talking about this adventure. And yeah, how are things in Chicago?
It sounds like you just want an excuse to come to Chicago more frequently, so I will offer
Yeah,
that to you.
yeah,
Yeah,
she nailed it really. Like you got it. Like
it's a great
anything,
city. It's
all
world
clients
class.
hire me in Chicago.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Rose, I'm just so impressed in, so much in getting to know you. Really, I've known you for a couple years, but like really this summer and
Mm.
over the course of the last few months, a lot of, deep conversations and it's been really, really rewarding on my end. I mean, when I stepped out on my own, and it'll be 7 years. Oh yeah, it'll be 7 years this coming spring or this coming winter, and it was terrifying, and
Mhm.
it was prior to COVID, so, I mean, I know there was a lot of, I don't wanna say that it wasn't the norm because we've always had people in the industry that break boundaries and, go against the grain and pave new paths, but I definitely felt at that time I was 35, female in our industry, not knocking our industry, but, like, we all know that, like, it's a little different for us, and
Mhm.
there's not as many of us as that I think we want to see, but that's changing. That's changed a lot. Um, but I just have felt such a connection with you and sort of your mindset, your journey, and I'm just so happy to be a part of that story because
Mm.
I remember what it was like, and it was pretty terrifying to walk away from the corporate manufacturing world. So tell me, and like, can you share with everyone the story? Like, how did we get here? What's 20 Bites? And just share a little bit of that with us.
Yeah. Before we start, Chelsea, thanks for first the opportunity to have deep conversations with you. This past summer has been very influential in my life, you being a large
Oh,
role in that. And I feel like the more we talked and connected, each time you shared an anecdotal story of your own life, I found myself saying, me too, right? And to see your own life reflected back at you from a peer and a colleague, it's a very reassuring place to be. And it takes away some of that loneliness that I think entrepreneurs can kind of find themselves in. So thank you.
thank you for trusting me with that part of the journey. And to back up what you're saying, I remember it had to have been maybe a year or two into Craeve, Jason Wange of FSPN
Hmm.
interviewed me, and I told him, I was like, he goes, "What's something unexpected about your journey?" And I almost broke down in
Yeah.
tears on the
Yeah.
podcast because I said, I didn't know how lonely it was going to be.
Hmm.
And that was huge to me. And certainly when you first reached out, I remember being like, I'm not going to let her be alone. Like, there's no reason to be lonely at the top or,
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, but
Yeah.
it's a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've had countless moments this summer almost breaking down on the verge of tears just like thanking people for calling me and thanking people to answering their phone and encouraging and leaving nice comments and especially like women to women support that is
Yeah.
speaks very highly, and it's so sad that we're sitting here in the year 2025 just grateful that women are kind to us, but it's a challenging industry, and I
Yeah.
love seeing those barriers break down, with each outstretch of the hand, with each, um, moment that a female can come up and support another industry colleague. It's beautiful, and I like being a part of it, and it's becoming the person you wish you had for yourself when you were younger. So, yeah.
100%. And I think I even said that to you like a week or 2 ago. We were having a
Mhm,
discussion and I was like, God, like, I had several mentors, female and male, and like, hey,
mhm.
hey guys, like, we're not forgetting you. You also help
Mhm.
us. And there's certainly, but it is something special, that bond, and just
Yes,
having like, the same lens, and a woman that's walked through what you've been through. And, I can say Bunny, Renette, there were several women that had my back, Amy, Shannon, 2 Shannons actually. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing, but
yeah,
yes, I totally get where you're coming from.
yeah, but
So
that's
anyway,
it.
so tell
That's
us,
it.
I know. So so 20 bites.
Yeah, 20 bites.
I love
This
the
all
name.
starts about 31 years ago when I was just a wee little lad. If I were to, like, summarize my working years of being a human, imposter feels like a really good place to start, and identity
Mm.
crisis at every single stage of my life. And I don't know if that's just a part of my nature and, like, my personhood that I'm just always questioning who I am, where do I fit in this world, how am I useful to people? Um, I am turning something that can be typically negative into something positive, and I see it as I just have so many passions in my life that I haven't known where my niche always is. So, like, I can give an example that even in the culinary industry, which is where I've been working since I was 13 years old, I never had a focus. Front of house, back of house, barista, making coffees, washing dishes, working the line, being a server. I've done fine dining, I've done low dining, I've been mid dining, I'm private chefing left and right. And I was in equipment manufacturing for 6 years of my career. Um, and it was just like each time a job was presented to me, I took it out of confidence and faith that it was the right step. I liked adding on skill sets to my tool belt. I liked
Mhm.
being
Yeah.
useful. I liked trying new things and being like a lifelong learner. But I think long term, the constant pivoting can create this environment in your brain where you don't know really then who is Rose Cowell
Hmm.
is,
Interesting.
and then even in equipment manufacturing, I was a chef, I was an
Mhm.
educator, I helped with marketing, I had a sales role. So, which one of those am I at the end of the day? And how do you even quantify that on a resume to try to get someone to hire you? Like, how do you put, I just do it all, whatever the challenge is, just let me
Jack of all
try.
trades.
Yeah, but like,
No, I know what you mean.
it's hard. A jack of all trades, but a master of none. And I don't really like that phrase, but it's kind of the truth. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, again, it's the quantifying of 15 years in this industry. I've seen everything, but none of it feels like who I am.
Interesting. So, like,
Yeah.
let's dig in a little bit deeper there. So,
Yeah.
you said that you felt, and I listen, I have had many a moment of imposter syndrome in my career, and same thing, started in manufacturing and table, like more on the buffet side,
Hmm.
disposables, and then went to tabletop, and then, came this direction and forming Craeve. So there have been many times that, and I don't want to make it all a female thing just because we spent some time on that, but I do think
Yeah.
there is something there
Yeah.
about the way that women process what, our changing tides, the way that we mature, the way that we learn and grow. And
Mm.
I do think there's something there. But you talked specifically about feeling, imposter syndrome and what, like, how did that factor into the next steps that, you just
Yeah.
made? Like, how did you overcome that?
I'm figuring out as we go. But so what happened was like years of this inner anxiety and turmoil over who is Rose Cowell. It honestly led to a point where I broke down and had to step away from a really, really good job and a really great organization and brand that I was proud to represent. And if anyone ever, was questioning what occurred, it was just like Rose had to go figure out who I was again, me speaking in
Mhm.
third person. I
I
had
support that.
to Thank you. I had to for myself, not for an employer, not for colleagues, not for clients. I had to go figure out like what sparked joy in my heart, what felt like good things to invest my time and my life into. Because when I take on stuff, I take it on very deeply.
Mhm.
So it felt like I had to go do some inner exploring and some soul searching, and the way to best approach it for me was to go all in. Like, I just had to walk away from a position, had to walk away from the security of a paycheck, from health insurance, from all the lovely things that employers offer their employees,
Yep.
and that was a huge fear. I mean, it was crippling to think that, like, I have on paper what most people would be begging for, a good, good job, and I'm saying I don't want that anymore. So yeah, May of 2025, I put in a 2 weeks notice and said I need to take about 4 to 5 months to go clear my head and find my space, and whether that's within an organization or something I need to go create for myself, it's what I need to do to continue moving forward in my career. So, yeah.
I mean, to all our listeners out there, this is a masterclass in self-care right there. Because I hear you and I feel you. I didn't have the words to articulate, I think, what you did when you stepped away from your career. I knew that I needed some space. I knew what I wanted to do. I think I had
Mhm.
kind of been planning it a little bit longer, but it was many years in the making. And the scariest thing ever was realizing there's no paycheck every 2 weeks. It's all on me, and this is what I'm about to do and where I'm going, and,
Mhm.
um, it's I commend you for your bravery in doing it, and one of the shittiest, I'm gonna say that, sorry, I cuss, Chelsea you third person, this is Chelsea being Chelsea, right? Um, moments was when people doubted my
Yeah.
decision. I had specifically, I remember I took a phone call from a gentleman who literally was like, Chelsea, Chelsea, Chelsea,
Oh
you
my
are
gosh.
throwing away your career right now. And
Okay.
I was sitting on the chair at my parents' house and like my mouth dropped open. And I just said, you know, no, I am not. I am
Mm.
doing exactly what I am intended to do, and
Yeah.
you will see it. And here we are, almost 7 years later, right?
Yeah.
And but man, just saying that back, there was a part of me that was like, "Ugh,"
Yeah.
like, "What if this guy's right?" So,
Then whatever. Yeah. I
yeah.
What happened for me was that I had just maybe this is like what happens to women when they enter their 30s, but I had just finished out my 20s, and it was a great decade of to be alive, and I did so much in my 20s. But you're no longer like the young, cool kid. Like, now you're just a 30-year-old woman, so you should be expected to, like, do your job and do a decent
Oh,
job at it.
Rose, wait till
But
you
it's
hit
like
40.
I felt like I lost my sparkle. I lost, like, being the
Oh,
young kid in the room, being,
yeah.
like, a leader, a forefront runner, the next up and coming rising star. I felt like it was taken away with me once I turned 30. But then I had a moment of realization that, like, why can you not reinvent who you want to be every decade of your working life? Like, our
100%.
working life is too long to feel like you get to be stuck in the thing you chose when you were 18 years old.
Yeah.
And I am a completely different person than I was when I was 14, 18, 25, now 31. And you know what? I'll be a different person when I'm 40. And maybe I'll pivot one more time and go into STEM research. I don't know. Like,
Everybody mark this down. In 9
yeah.
years, we're gonna redo this session, and we're gonna see what version of Rose she's gonna be. And I only say that because 'cause I'm turning 43. I actually had to think about it in 2 weeks, like 2 weeks or so, and I'm with you. Like, I remember hitting, like, mid-30s. I was like, "Oh my god, my entire life I've been this other brand and
Yeah.
somebody else's brand." And I even
Mhm.
said this to a factory guy the other day, and, and it was funny because like, I missed the whole point of why I was telling him it, because like, the whole point I was getting at was, like, if I went to work for any factory, it would have been, like, I would have wanted to work for you guys. Like, I was,
Mhm.
like, meaning to pay him a compliment, and of course, in Chelsea style, I, like, forgot where I was going with the story. But I'm not forgetting where I'm going with this, is that I said to him, I go, "I didn't want to be one brand anymore. I
Yeah.
wanted to step aside. I wanted to try on different brands for size. I wanted to help people. I wanted to build
Mm.
something new, and I
Mhm.
wanted the opportunity to put my mark on the industry."
Yep.
And that's, I think, a lot of what drew me instantly to our first conversations, in talking and sort of like, okay, because I remember being like, where you want to go with this? Like, what are we doing? Because
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to help no matter what. But like,
Yeah.
take me through that. So what did that look like? So, you made the hard decision, you put the 2 weeks in,
Mhm.
and now boom, it's real, girl. Like, it's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, and so, like, I don't know, for anyone who's taken off a period of time from work for the sake of self-care or exploring what your next role is, if you've taken sabbaticals, time off yourself, whatever you wanna call it, um, I think we go into it with these preconceived notions of what it should look like. And if I get to
Mhm.
the end of my time off and I don't land the perfect job with the perfect employer, it's a
Oh yeah.
waste of my time. And my fear going into my time off was, what happens if my time's up and I still don't know who I am and I still don't have a job? And now I've burned through savings and I took a leap of faith and it's all been for nothing. And all those naysayers and all the doubters will have been right. Like, how embarrassing. So, my pride was that engine that kept me going this summer. But I took the time, I interviewed a lot. I had ideas of companies I would align with that I wanted to be, working alongside. And it was like, the interviewer would ask me about myself, and I found myself unsure of how to answer the question, "What is the role I'm looking for?" Because I wasn't looking for sales positions, I wasn't looking to be in marketing, I wasn't a graphic designer, but yet I do all those things. Um, I just kept on coming to the realization that I wanted to find an avenue where a brand could either just accept all facets of me and let me run loose and just serve the people and do my job wherever that was needed, cross departments, across brands, whatever. Those roles don't really exist in our industry. And it's because I don't think employers know how to guide those types of employees. It's fine, it just doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah,
So,
that's a
I
good
was
point.
I was imp interviewing left and right, having good, decent conversations. I mean, I was offered roles that anyone probably would have just said, "Rose, be content and take a job, like, be happy," and I just wasn't. So I go, "Hey, if that ideal role doesn't exist out there for me, I need to be a responsible adult and take care of myself and go create that for myself." Hence me taking 15 years of industry knowledge and experience, albeit it's wide and vast and very weird. It's across all departments, and I've brought it together in what I hope is a consulting firm that just helps people. And I know that sounds so goofy and so cliche, but if I can
No, it does.
help any clients with commonalities, issues, problems, heart pains, like, my goal is to serve the client with the information my life has captured through many jobs in this industry, working many different angles. Um, yeah, so I
I
started
don't
a company.
well,
Well, not a
but I
company
don't
because it's just myself, but
Well, no, but I think, no, you first off, you are a company. You can be a company of one. I
of
mean, I
one. Yeah,
100%. And I mean, and
yeah,
again, you're not just one. Like, this is why we partnered with you, right?
for
Because
sure. Yeah.
immediately I was like, wait a minute, you know things we don't know, and we have
Mhm.
things like you might need. So, like,
Yep.
I think there's a lot of beauty in being willing to think outside of the box. And like, why is Crave here? Because I was willing to think outside of the box. Why is 20 Bites here? You're willing to think outside the box. And I
Yeah.
think that that point that you made, I think that that's a really good lesson for maybe leadership in our industry is that same. Like I remember specifically sitting in the office and presenting a role for myself with that would combine everything I had just got like learned in my master's in marketing and everything I knew to do on the tech side and like wanted to do and what I was passionate about. And then combine that with what I had been very successful at,
Yeah.
which is the sales and relationship side. And I remember thinking like, "Oh my god, I can clearly see where there is like this role for me that this business or a business could benefit from." And
Mhm.
in corporate and in these like I don't know, like verticals and functions and tie it up in a nice pretty bow. I just think that like leaders are afraid sometimes
Yeah.
to make those different roles, those, okay, it's not just a sales role or just a marketing role or just a chef or, it is
Mhm.
somebody who has a lot of cross departmental skills that can bring things together and make it work. And I think that's a real miss.
Yeah.
Because you have really talented people that are also really passionate about things. And if you just take that leap of faith and give it 3 months, give it 6 months, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it costs so much to hire and train people. Why would you
Mhm.
not give it that time? But at the same time, I also think that as a business owner now who has employees, I see things through certainly a different lens than I did 7 years ago. Like I see decisions now that were made around me that I'm like, "Oh, I really get it now. Oh, okay." Like I see it from a different angle.
Mm.
So I think there is a give and take there, and that there's a reason why businesses do things the way they do.
Yeah.
But that all said, we wouldn't be here if
Yeah.
people didn't say like, I don't get it," and that is like, what is it? Necessity is the mother of all invention or something like that. I am also terrible at phrases, and my dog would probably bark in the back of this because he's a puppy and cute. But anyway, so tell us, how did we get with the name 20 Bite? Where does that come from? And also, you did something really fascinating with your summer, and I don't want us to get away without
Okay.
talking about that. So, name and then what you
Yeah.
did with your time.
Yeah. So 20 Bites has been living in my head my whole life, let's just say. It's a conglomeration and a final pinnacle of really the services Rose Cowell excels at. And so I'm going to sell it as a company, right? Obviously, being from the food service industry, food is near and dear to my heart. I'm a storyteller and I love the medium of food. So I wanted something to be reflective of that. I don't like the thought of calling myself Rose Cowell LLC because someday if I'm not doing so hot, I don't want my name to be on the front cover of something. I don't know. I wanted it to be a bit of an anonymous name so that anyone could be the creative and so that I have the flexibility to grow someday and have it feel inclusive to for, employees someday. So the story of 20 Bites is that I am a notoriously fast person. I move fast in kitchens, I prep fast, I speak fast, I walk very fast. I have a very hard time pausing in my life. I go from event to project. I'm just always thinking of those next steps. So being in the present moment's not my greatest suit. I'm working on meditation with that. But whereas I'm a very fast mover, I know that to be effective in the consulting realm requires a lot of slowing down to understand the client's vision, where they're currently at, where they desire to go someday. What are their desires, their dreams, their heart pains? What are their issues? So 20 bites actually is the recommended amount of times you need to chew your food to allow your body to absorb its full nutritional propensity and ability for your body. I don't
I'm
take 20 bites of my food. Do
I'm
you?
failing. I am failing at
Yes.
that
I'm
thing.
a one bite person. The food goes in my mouth and I swallow it and then we move on because I don't have time for 20 bites.
Okay, so a quick aside, this extra 15, 20 pounds that my 40s has brought is making so much more sense right now.
Yes. Take 20 bites. So 20
Thank you for
bites
unlocking that for me.
I read it in an article one day and they were like, yeah, 20 bites per mouthful for digestion to take place, for the enzymes in your mouth, for saliva, for like your intestines. That's what healthy people do, I guess. And so I read it. And then one day when I was coming up with ideas for names, straight up 20 bites just popped into my head. And I was like, wait, that's so cute because bites for food. It could be a double entendre. It could be BYTES for the digital space because I do a lot of digital work with clients. Um, and I just thought it was neutral. It spoke to the industry. It's a little story about going slow to go fast, slowing down with my clients, doing the right pre-work, asking the right leading questions so that by the time that proposal comes to your inbox, the quote sent across or that final deliverable is being sent over, we are aligned and we're not reworking and going back to the drawing board. And so, yeah, that's 20 bites. That's how it came to be.
I love it. It's a great story. And it reminds me, like, Craeve, my middle name's Ray, Rae. And so that's why I spell Craeve the way I did. And I remember thinking, like, well, everything I'm doing is going to be creative and you crave food. And it just like deposited itself into my brain one day and it was written down. I'm like, buy that website because in
Yeah.
a year or two, you're going to be doing this. So I love hearing the story behind how a name came to be. And I've been waiting to ask you that because there's one question I did not ask you this summer. In
Yeah.
all our conversations, I kept being like, I gotta ask her, like, where are 20 bites? And then when we decided that we would record together, I'm like, okay, this is perfect. I can get that story now.
Yeah. And the other incredible thing about a name, and obviously, you know this being in like the branding space and creating brand visions and identities and names and is that the other day, my friend, a mutual friend of ours, texted me and said, hey, I'm eating food right now very quickly. And it reminded me about 20 bites. So I'm thinking about you. And here I am, Chelsea, being like, am I a genius? The fact that I have now coined eating food as the 20 bites thing. So anytime, hopefully, someone takes a bite of food, Rose Cowell might pop into your head. And like, if that's not true alignment for branding, I don't know what else is. So, yeah,
It's amazing. I love it. I love a good founder story. This is awesome.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
part of your founder story, I do want to pivot to this while we have time. And this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing.
yeah.
But let's take it a little personal. You went on a journey this summer of something that I was like, also like I keep relating. You can tell my birthday's on my mind because like everything relates right now to the fact that I'm like entering my mid-ish 40s. I
Yeah.
was very impressed with what you did with your summer. So please talk about that because also when you came out, it was electrifying to hear what it did for you.
Yeah. So again, my departure from the industry started May. And so I was going into the summer months of Chicago, great weather. And I knew I had about 4 months in front of me with a whole bunch of nothing on my calendar. And since I just mentioned that I'm a very go, go, go person, type A, I don't like slowing down, sitting down, relaxing. That's not for me. I was terrified of what 4 months with a lack of purpose would do for my soul. Like, I might as well just be a shell of a person for the next 4 months if I don't have a job, if I don't need to wake up for reasons, if I don't have appointments and Teams meetings. So, like any normal person, I was like, I should do a triathlon because that's a
Oh,
really
time out.
good
Like
use.
any normal person. Hold on. I have to like literally start. Like any normal person, I just decided to,
I should
triathlon.
I should just do a triathlon because
Sure.
a friend was running and racing in the Chicago Triathlon at the end of August. It
Okay.
gave me 3 months to train correctly and appropriately. It's the perfect amount of time to go from the couch to a triathlon, and I was so deeply craving the structure of something again in my life. So I signed up for the Chicago Triathlon. It's guys, it's not we're not talking Ironman levels. It's a mile swim, it's a 26-mile bike, and it's a 6-mile run. Um,
Only.
only, but it got me out of bed every morning. It gave me discipline, it gave me structure, and it felt like amidst all of my confusion and all of my unsureness of the summer, I was sure about one thing, is tomorrow you gotta go ride your bike, the next day you gotta go swim in the lake, and the next day you need to go run. And so it was the decision to daily wake up and take small bouts of action, very small actionable steps, right? It was only what I could do for that day. Eventually you find yourself at the end of 3 months racing in the Chicago Triathlon and coming in under sub 3 hours. And so for a first timer, I was pretty happy with that. Um, and it just felt like doing something physically demanding with my body was helping balance more of the mental space my brain was taking on.
Yeah.
And if I needed space to process thoughts or work through some fears this summer of not finding a job, the physical demand was just enough of like a pain reliever to help me keep moving through those fears. And at the same time, I was waking up daily doing physical training. I was also trying to build 20 bites. And so I said, like, this whole summer, I neither felt like a true athlete nor I felt like a businesswoman, but every day I was waking up and choosing to do things that were proving otherwise. And I was like, you know what? Small steps, small actionable steps per day will result in what you want down the road. And so, yeah, I completed the triathlon. I'm now training for a half Ironman for next June. 20 Bites was born from this summer. And I don't want to lead people astray and have them believe that, like, everything's figured out and I know exactly who I am, and I've got this whole dissertation on, like, the inner workings of Rose Cowell. But the triathlon taught me that if aside from anything in my life, aside from my job, aside from my standing in this industry, I'm disciplined, I show up and I do the work, and I have a really big heart, and I love to solve problems for people. And so
Those are
that's
big things.
yeah, they are. And this summer reminded me of like at the core of who I am, I have those traits. And so to now brand myself to the industry to say, can I come alongside you and help you guys in your own
Yeah.
needs? So yeah, that's what I did this summer. It was great
I
fun.
I think it's amazing. I'm very in awe of that discipline. I mean, this summer I was like, I mean, truth be told, I kind of did my own version of it and not to the physical demands of what you talked about. But I remember specifically going like, you know what, I'm really gonna start we learned this term phronesis, right? And it's about the knowledge that comes from doing the work, right?
Uh-huh.
And I mean, you can see the collection of marketing books that I have behind me. Truth be told, most of the books that are behind me, I know the author, right? I've spent time with the author. That's something I've really invested in is going to these, uprising events where all of these experts come together and we have this really wonderful retreat and we learn from each other. And I felt very impostery that I'd be there and I'd be with this like super amazing marketing famous person and I hadn't read their book yet. I hadn't read
Hmm.
their true inner thoughts, their life's work, at least for that year or two or whatever, because some people have published many books that are there. Um, and so I set out this summer. I said, this is something I can do. Every morning I can get up and I can just start, starting small.
Hmm.
And it was amazing because I found my joy for reading books again, where a lot of times I read news articles.
Hmm.
And that's a whole other discussion for what's going to be coming out with Crave with our newsletter. But, I'm a news junkie and I don't mean news like politics. I mean, like, I love to read about different cultures and all this stuff. Um, but I felt like I needed to start doing this work and really getting deeper into it. And so I think that discipline and that heart and all of those skills, they're going to serve you so well in whatever version of yourself you decide to
Mhm.
invent in 10 years.
Mhm.
But they're certainly going to serve this version of yourself. So
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, and I guess maybe we could wrap up on, what types of projects, I certainly know in the Crave world the types of projects that we work on, but give,
Mhm.
our listeners a flavor for the type of things that from all these different experiences you've had. And
Yeah.
I think that's the amazing
Mhm.
part. I mean, you want people with a variety of experiences
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah.
you know, but give
Yeah.
me a flavor for the type of projects that make your heart sing or
Yeah.
things that you see like, "Oh my god, people need this. Why aren't they doing this?" Like, I'd love to know.
Yeah. Um, it's a very wide, response I'll give you. So, what I saw happening so frequently in the food service, industry, specifically in equipment manufacturing, was that at the end of the day, and there's differing opinions on this, but in my perspective, the client, that end user is who this equipment is made for. And the equipment is made for the sake of putting food on a plate to serve to a table to serve the true end user who's the consumer at a restaurant or at a country club, right? Now, you ask a dealer, you ask a manufacturer's representative, they all have their own clients. But my client and my focus is the storytelling of food and the communities and the fellowship that occurs when you sit at a singular table consuming food and beverage, sharing your life with people. And that bridge the gap, right, needs to be bridged more effectively by storytellers in our industry. And I just felt like with how sterile the industry can be, we're manufacturers of stainless steel boxes of various sorts. I was just always craving more imagery of food being
Mm,
utilized. I wanted better B-roll images of not just stock photos, but actual food coming out of this equipment, real people consuming it, the stories behind that.
yeah,
Um, so I love storytelling through food as a medium. I love food styling. I love food photography. I like videography. I like being the talent behind the camera for the client's sake, right? So if you're a food manufacturer and you're going to be launching a new product and you need to create a repertoire of recipes, I can research and develop your recipes for you. I can be the chef in your hands and pans, being more of like an actress role. I'll do speaking engagements and be brand ambassadors for brands. I'll help you figure out your content strategy for social media. So that's kind of like a category of more content driven services for this food service
sure,
space.
absolutely.
But then also like a huge thing that I love is I love process. And so developing SOPs, standard operating procedures for brands is like probably my favorite thing to do. And it sounds very cut and dry and kind of quite boring, but I love problem solving and like going into a company, hearing of a constant reoccurring issue they always run into, and they just try to reinvent the wheel each and every time is let me bring process to this. Let's create some ebooks. Let's create some single pagers. Let's create some nice spec sheets, manuals, brochures to bring better process so that these customers and the clients aren't always coming up against the same issues. So
Yeah, 100%.
example, I have a current project working on for a client and they run culinary competitions, but every single time they ran the competition, it was being done differently. And it led for a lot of frustrations for presenters and even for the people who were in the competition themselves. So I knew the brand well enough. I know culinary competitions well enough that I developed a full guidebook as to if you are going to be participating in this feature of our company, this is how you should abide. It's like holy Bibles basically for the
Yeah,
industry. So I
yeah,
love that kind of stuff. I love graphic design. So I like helping out in any realm of, posts for Instagram, any kind of social content. But I also like a lot of technical writing, so helping with spec sheets, manuals, any kind of white paper. It's kind of right up my alley. A lot of ebook design. Again, like what I was saying earlier is like I just have a lot of unique random skill sets, and I'm learning how to just let them all exist at the same time and offer a pretty wide menu to my clients as to the work we can do together. So, but then I also love putting on parties and hosting great e-learning events. I'm a teacher at heart. I love educating. I like taking very challenging concepts and bringing them down to like smaller, digestible bites of food. So, yeah, those are some of the things I dabble in and some of the current products I've been working on. So,
That's all, right? That's it? No, I'm joking. I'm teasing. No,
mm, no.
what I think this is the point, and what I love about that spectrum of things that you listed off. This is content, and this is what content looks like. And
Yeah.
when you started the conversation, you talked about how, what's the experience ultimately of that true end user, of that customer sitting at the table. And like, how do they get to that place? They get to that place through great storytelling. So we were talking about at the beginning of this, and you were saying, that ultimate end user, that person sitting at the table, how do they get there? Well, because all of the people around us in the industry that have to influence and or help that chef, that end user, make the decision so they can put that perfect bite of food on the table.
Yeah.
And it's not one piece of content. It's not one photo. It's not one. It is SOPs to train the dealers
Mhm.
right. It is the food photography and stylized. And I've seen there's a big difference, and I agree with you. I came from tabletop. In tabletop, the name of the game is taking really great stylized photos. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what sells the product. And when you get over into the equipment side, you realize that a lot of times some of that B-roll, those pieces of content you were talking about, it's just missing. And I
Uh-huh.
get that when you're in a more technical space, that's not always the sexiest in the, mental space of like, well, this is how this widget works, and you need to know
Uh-huh.
all the, is it electric? Is it this? Is it, what kind of power, et cetera, to
Mhm.
make sure that you match up the right equipment. But that doesn't change the fact that there's so much more to tell the story of how that piece of equipment or the smallware or
Mhm.
whatever the item is helps the end user and what the end result is. And I think that there's not enough importance placed on that. I do
Yeah.
think our industry is changing a lot in their mindset of marketing. I think that, companies are starting to have more realistic budgets. They're starting to look at content differently. But I do think it takes people like us who are saying, well, wait a minute, like I'm an infrastructure person, I'm a strategy person. My team, and hence why we partnered with you, is a deep bench of people that can execute those strategies and those ideas that we dream up, and those solve those problems. And it's not one thing. It's not just video. It's not just photography. I think that broad range of skill sets is what really lends itself in your case to being such a deeper bench, and such a bigger solution.
So the thing that have gleaned and I've been thinking a lot about is that people are influenced by associations they make in their head. Like people are pretty good at convincing themselves of the things they do and don't want, but we need to subtly help them with association so that therefore, like earlier, when somebody takes a bite of food and they eat too fast, maybe they think about 20 bites and they want to call me, right? And the thing that I found to be so effective when I was during my time at equipment manufacturing was that let's say I was doing an equipment demonstration, right? And I'm focusing on the oven or the mixer, whatever piece of equipment I was teaching on, but I always paired it with a bite of food because duh, like that's what comes out of this equipment is food. Lo and behold. And I remember specifically I made this one dessert and I think it had strawberries incorporated into it somehow. And years later, I had a dealer come up to me at a trade show saying, "Rose Cowell, each time I eat a strawberry, I think of the brand you were representing because of that bite of food you gave me." And he goes, and I just remembered that that brand in a sea of many brands that you can choose from, it was a baking and pastry equipment manufacturer. So he is always saying, "You are the forefront runner in my mind when it comes to selecting equipment out of that category." Because I made a dish that he really enjoyed. And so that's the association and that's the storytelling that I'm passionate about is like Did that convert into a sales in that moment? Who knows, maybe not, but this dealer partner now associates that brand with baking and pastry.
Well, it was the
So,
experience. I mean, you really
yeah.
think about it, like the experience, the flavor, and that's the thing. It's like it's not just what you see, right? It's not
Uh-huh.
just your eyes, it's your take. Like in our world in hospitality, there's so much more that goes into it, into how people experience food, experience culinary, and the end product. And again, I think that that's where I totally agree with you in that I feel like sometimes marketing gets put into this very like flat bucket of like, well, it's just social media posts or like, oh, we've
Uh-huh.
got a flyer. Well, like it's so much more than that. Like what you're doing helps chefs save time. What you're doing helps people put more butts in the seat and make a better income and, keep their family restaurant going. I mean, like we are the people that feed America. Like not
Uh-huh.
to make this a big like America thing, but right? It really, when you sit back and you realize how much our lives revolve around food and around
Yeah.
dining, like
Yeah.
why wouldn't we want our customers to experience our brands in more
Yeah.
robust ways and not in just these, simple or flat ways? I mean, that's why I'm a big proponent of video and a lot of what we do.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I've worked really hard to make it scalable and make it more accessible because we get it. Like that's, as marketers, like we understand like, the challenges that you face in budget or time or talent or whatever. But also realize that like there's a lot of ways we can help you if you just slow down, take the time, explain what the issue is. Like we can go about it in a lot of different ways and um it's not always just like a flyer or a postcard or,
Uh-huh.
an email. Not that those, I'm not knocking any of those things. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that the strategy has to be so much broader in today's fractured attention society, especially
Uh-huh.
when you're dealing with something as
Yeah.
personal as food.
So
So,
personal. It is
so
cross-cultural. It's one of the few things that all mankind partakes in on a daily basis, that's so necessary for the functioning of life. I think it's a great way to break barriers with people. Our end users, right? Our chefs, even the consumers at those restaurants, they're using all of their senses to partake, their sight, their smell,
absolutely.
their taste, their visual, their touch. So like why would we not also use all of our senses to support them as marketing and as sales strategists? So
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
I get that equipment manufacturers or tabletop, like you're selling a product, sell the product in the way that your end user plans to use it.
Yeah, not just maybe the way that you think should be positioned. That's the other mistake that I see a lot of times. On the manufacturing side, which of course then bleeds down to the distributor and it rolls downhill, right, into the rep because I mean the factory's setting the tone. And you have to accept sometimes where your product positioning is from the actual customer. Like your brand is what your customer sees your brand as. Your brand is how your customer views you and interprets it, what you put out there. And I've watched as sometimes people just, oh, I want my brand to be this, this, this. Well, you can work at that over time. You can do a series. I mean, we worked really hard over time to get a certain viewpoint about the manufacturer I work with out of the industry and out of like that's the first thing people thought, right?
Yep.
And it took us 2 or 3 years, but it worked. But it was a systematic strategy. It was in our marketing, it was in our sales pitch. I mean, it was in everything that we did. We touted that message and it took time. So
Uh-huh.
we had to accept where we were and where people viewed us and how people understood, you know, our what they thought of our brand at the place we were actually at to then move the needle past it. And when I see when you don't have that level of acceptance, it's like you're like off living in the clouds and like you're not reading the room, you're not getting the memo. So
Uh,
why would you ever think you're going to be as successful then with getting your pitch through if that's not how it's interpreted. And that's a hard thing to do when you are in love with your product. There's a difference
yeah.
between loving your product, loving your brand, and being in love with your brand. And I see people make that mistake. And it's hard. I mean, I'm sure I fall victim to it too with Craeve, but that's why I go to people even like you the other day and I was like, "Hey, here's what I'm doing in the, edition 1 of the newsletter, like, straight up tell me if I'm off base here. Like, I don't want to be in an ivory tower." And
Yeah,
I think it's really important when it comes to sales and marketing that leadership do that and be willing to hear opposing viewpoints and think of things differently. So,
for sure. Yeah, I agree.
I know, we've been talking for a minute here and, it's funny. We set out to not do a podcast, but we actually did a
It's a
podcast.
podcast.
So now, like, damn it, Rose, I have to turn around and record a whole opener to this. Like,
They don't need an opener. It's fine. It'll just be our smiling faces.
so that'll be a whole other thing, and this will be a fun Easter egg for anyone that listens all the way to the end to know that, like, we set out, we're like, oh, we're just gonna record some content. We got to get your story, and here we are,
Yeah,
45, 50 minutes later. I'm like, literally about 20 minutes ago, I was like, oh man, this is really actually it's a podcast episode. It is.
I did a podcast.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think there's so much more we can talk about in the future,
Hmm.
as both of our businesses continue to grow. And certainly, I mean, I don't think anyone is sitting here expecting you to have it all figured out when you just launched the brand. And I
Good.
think that that's really fun.
It
Like,
is. Yeah.
so, but
Yeah.
I appreciate the trust that you've placed in Craeve and
Mm.
me, and I just can't wait to see where this goes for you, for us, for everybody. So thank you so much for spending time today and letting us hear the story behind 20 Bites.
Yeah. Like when we started talking this summer, and I felt like we were both beating around the bush a little bit as to, like, what was going to come about from all these conversations. And I think I just straight up said, like, Chelsea, we need to partner together. I have services that Crave can benefit from.
Yep.
You clearly have services that I need to benefit from. And it felt like just the right thing to do is to
Yep.
almost like a humbling standpoint as like an entrepreneur coming out into the industry for my first statement to be, I don't have it all figured out, guys. So therefore, let me work with people who will bolster my abilities and who have my back, and to now offer as a single entity a full suite of services because I have you. Like,
Thank you.
that's strategic, and that's how I
It is.
scale very quickly, and that's how I
Yeah.
bring better services to my clients, and your clients might need to benefit from some of my services. So,
100%.
yeah, it felt like the more we talked about it, I was like, "Hey, I think we're really onto something here," and I love your team. I love the things you guys work on, and it
Yeah.
helps that we're both in the same industry and we have rubbed shoulders for a long time. So, yeah, obviously, we put thought into it, but it was not a challenging decision to make to
No,
go
it
into this journey with you.
it was really funny to me, and not funny, haha, but I remember specifically when we had a conversation. And in my mind, I'm like, we should just partner because you've got this brand. Like, I knew that you were there more than you were even willing to, like,
Yeah.
say, admit, like, feel that you were there. But I also respected, like, this is her journey. And,
Mm,
I don't know, maybe in a month or two, like, maybe there is some reason that's holding her back that, just isn't fully fleshed out or she's getting there, but I trust my gut on this. And
yeah,
my gut said from the moment that we spoke, I'm like, there's a brand here, there's an idea here. You need to stand on your own, get it out there. You're going to get there. You were just in that transition part. And I remember specifically when I was in that too, people call me up, "What are you doing, Chelsea?" I'm like, "I'm not ready to share yet. Like, I'm still working on it."
yeah,
So I'm just
yeah,
so glad that, again, I think everything happens for a reason. I
yeah,
appreciate that you picked up the phone to call, and I think there is plenty of room in business out there, and
yeah,
I think and hope that we pave the way for the way that partnerships can look between businesses and brands and women in our industry.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It's funny because I've been getting a lot of well wishes recently, right, with announcements and coming out as a launch for 20 Bites. And uh, I know they mean well, but a lot of the comments are saying things along the lines of, well, whenever you land somewhere, I bet it'll be great. And I want to say, oh, I've landed. Like, this is it.
yeah.
I'm not waiting. Like, this
Yeah.
is the announcement, guys. I'm not taking a job with other people.
Oh,
And
I
that's
got that.
terrifying.
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember
'Cause
specifically walking a show floor and literally everyone was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, Chelsea. So when's your non-compete up?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. Wait a minute. This is what I'm really doing. Like, I'm actually starting a marketing agency, although I did call it a consultancy at the time. So we'll see if in like 2 or 3 years if you're like if you have different, terminology and
yeah.
I mean, I say that half joking, but
Yeah.
um I feel you, and I'm so excited to see where you go with this, Rose, and you are going to be successful. I have no doubt in my mind.
Send the clients my way. No. Yeah, I would just hope that, I've met a lot of wonderful people in this industry, and I hope my reputation precedes me. And if you've ever had the opportunity to speak with me or work or collab in previous ways, know that the work I was doing back then is the work I continue to do today. And yeah, I'm ready to take on those projects, and it's going to be great. So
Okay, well, if you can tell everybody what's the best way to get in touch with you, Rose.
I'm a very responsive person. I answer all forms of contact. You can first find more information at 20bites.com, 20 spelled out TWENTY. You can find me on socials on LinkedIn, my personal Rose Cowell, my 20 Bites LinkedIn. I've got Instagram. I've got a YouTube page, no content up yet.
Coming.
You can probably find me on PayPal, Venmo, Square, Cash App. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, lots of ways to reach out to me. Love hearing from people, love connecting, and just seeing if there's any possible opportunities. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Rose, and let it be known this is definitely the first of many conversations.
Loved it. Thanks, Chelsea.